that right now we're hearing each other, and your listeners, our listeners, are hearing us. And so, if they want to explore this, an experience of being one with everything, not being separate, then they can notice, oh, where do I hear this conversation? And our first reaction might be, I hear it in my brain, or I hear it coming out of the computer, because we've been conditioned to believe we hear things over there. So when we were a child, look at the bird up there in the tree singing. And so we just start thinking that the bird is up there in the tree singing, and that's where the sound's coming from. But if we look in our experience, that's not where we hear the sound. We hear the sound in our experience. Now, that can be pretty challenging at the beginning, but we can let it sink in and let us realize, wow, yeah, in my experience, the sound is here where I am, and then that starts leading to the knowing that I'm not separate from that sound. If I think the sound's coming from over there, then I think I'm receiving some sound and I'm separate from it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we realize, oh, in my experience, the sound is here, then we can do the same thing with seeing. Oh, I'm seeing this on the computer or my phone. Okay, but where am I seeing this in my experience? I see it here.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you are watching or listening. This is the Holistic Monitor, and I'm your host, Nick Sconia. The Holistic Monitor is a wellness podcast featuring life energy research, health and wellness transformation, self-improvement and empowerment, philosophy, spirituality, and now guest interviews as well. We look forward to your comments on our YouTube channel at Holistic Monitor, and you can also listen on the go with us at Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and more. And with that, let's get today's show started. And welcome to the Holistic Monitor podcast. I'm your host, Nick Sconia. On today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Peggy O'Neill, a guide and mentor who has dedicated her life to helping others break free from their limitations of the illusion of separation and live authentically as they serve their highest calling. Join us for our deep dive into the transformative power of direct experience and the freedom that comes with discovering your true self. On the Holistic Monitor with Peggy O'Neill. Peggy O'Neill, you're a certified integral master coach with over 30 years of experience coaching leaders and multinational organizations around the world. And you hold a Juris Doctor from the University of Arkansas.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And you are working in the field of coaching. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
So what got you started? What was the impetus for your journey out of law and into coaching?
Well, I'd been coaching for about 12 years. Well, it was really about 10 years, I guess, at the time. Practicing law for 12 years. Sorry, got it backwards. Been practicing law for about 12 years. And some friends of mine had been doing some personal development, transformational. It's called, what was it called at the time? Anyway, so it was leading edge transformational experience. And so I got involved with that and got really interested. So I was in my mid 30s at the time and started thinking, why didn't I know this a long time ago? Might helped me a lot in relationships or practicing law or anything I was doing. And so I was fascinated. I was human potential movement. It was a training in the human potential movement category. And then I was real active with the organization as a volunteer. And then also in that time, I was living in Little Rock, Arkansas at the time, and someone brought a coaching course to Arkansas in 1988, long before anybody had even heard of coaching. But I was so fascinated with this idea of who we are and how life really works that I signed up for the coaching course. So I was active as a graduate in this transformational training company, was taking these coaching courses, and then I was offered a job by the training company And so I thought, why not? I've practiced law for 12 years. I can always come back to it if I don't like this. But I never looked back. I had
I
to
bet it.
drive for 3 days from Little Rock to San Francisco. It took me 3 days. I was by myself
Mm,
and I never looked back. Was so grateful for that opportunity. And when years later, in reflection, because people have asked, such a big transition. Because when I
right,
lived in Arkansas, I mean, I had a nice legal background. Bill and Hillary Clinton were both teachers of mine in law school,
right.
and he offered me my first. Well, he helped me find my first job out of law school, and then he offered me a job as an assistant attorney general. Then when he was governor, I was purchasing director. So,
Mm-hmm.
I had a great legal career. What was I doing
Right.
going to work for this human potential training company? And
Yeah.
so, in retrospect, I realized I'd really gotten into law to try to make a difference in the world. How
Mm-hmm.
do we get along? How can we work together, really get along? And uh, and then, of course, realized not too long into my legal practice that kind of wasn't the direction of most law. It's more how can I be right and make the other guy wrong? How can I,
Right.
be get what I want in a contract, and I don't really care what the other person wants in a contract. It was
Right.
really at that time, especially it was before mediation was in Arkansas,
Mm,
that it was that really us against them approach
right.
to law, and so that
Negotiation and debate basically are like the
yeah,
forms of.
because I'd been purchasing director for the state of Arkansas, I was doing a lot of legal work in the private practice,
Mm-hmm.
negotiating contracts, being before planning commissions and regulatory agencies, and so
Right.
it's how do I get how to my clients, of course, wanted
Get the
me,
most.
I want to get what I want, and
Right.
I don't really care, win lose. It was that sort of environment,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why it really wasn't that hard for me to move on. It again, in retrospect, when I reflected on why was it so easy, because I found in this new coaching and training human potential environment, it was more in alignment with what I always really wanted to do with my life. How do we get along? How do we work together? How do we care about each other
Right.
and be the best people we can be for each other and create the world that we really want? So
Yeah.
that's the journey to that.
You were looking to affect change legally, and you found that it was better to go personally, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
Affect change in the world person by person versus through the legal system, which of course,
Yeah.
there's always somebody pushing back against whatever you're doing
Exactly.
in the official
Exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
And that's really the way that change does happen is one person. I mean, it can be a whole group of people, but that each person, as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. So it
Right.
starts with, are we really being the people that match what we say we want the world to be like? If we're not
Right.
there, that's the place to start.
Yeah.
Anything else is
Right.
just creating more of the same, maybe trying to feel better along the way or make a little difference, but it's not really going to change anything in the long run
Yeah.
unless we each are living aligned with what we really say we want the world to be.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, when you said you started with that first approach, did that change
The
down
first
the line
approach
to coaching?
to
The
coaching,
your what was it called?
the human
Personal
potential movement.
human potential movement. Did it
Yeah, I
change?
was
Did
with
it
that company.
adjust or
Yeah, I was with that company about 4 years
okay?
and was still taking coaching courses at the same time. And so through that period of time, I was in San Francisco, was traveling all the time doing training, wound up in New York,
Mm,
managing the training center there, actually turned it around. And then they moved me to the DC area to do the same thing there. But so for that period of time, for those 4 years, I was doing pretty much the same sort of work, but really started appreciating that coaching might be a more sustainable approach to human change, because these trainings were great trainings, fantastic trainings.
right.
Um, there are flaws there. There were flaws in them. So
Yeah.
that's why I was kind of ready to move on after 4 years. Like, okay, because I really think coaching, more heartfelt approach all along the way was more natural for me, and and that it really took it. So a training is nice and great, but typically it's not going to sustain change, because you
Right.
get back into the workplace, back in your relationships, maybe you've been in a training for 5 days, because it was pretty intense, a 5-day training. There's a basic training, advanced course. I was an advanced course trainer, 5-day
Okay.
training. But you get back out into the world and it's hard to sustain the insights that you had.
Right.
And with coaching, I saw, oh, this could really
Long term. Yeah.
And kind of not a little off from what you're asking me. But the interesting thing, when I was in DC and then I quit my job, or in the DC area, I quit my job to start my own coaching business. Bill Clinton got elected president. So I
Yeah.
also went to work for him when he was president.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought, well, I just quit a job and just started my own business, but I know the president. So I did go work in the administration for a period of time, but then transitioned back into coaching. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. Were you able to apply what you had learned in the position in the administration?
Yeah. So I had the position really suited where I was and what I knew. It was with the Federal Labor Relations Authority. And the idea was doing training to help labor and management get along. So it was really, it included everything I knew, because I knew the law. I also had government experience in Arkansas. And then I also knew training and communication and how do people get along from my coaching and training career. So yeah, it was a great melding of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you combine wisdom teachings, science, and then direct experiential inquiry into your practice?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit of a story and how that all came together. So in 2007, and I realized the bio I gave you, I didn't realize it didn't include. I've now been coaching 35 years.
35 years, yeah. Before you know it, right?
I'm about to tell a little story that the years won't add up if I don't address that. So I apologize that I didn't.
No, you're all good. You blink your eye and 5 years goes by.
Yeah, it does.
Before you know it,
it's But in 2007, I'd been coaching for about 20 years and been certified by a coaching school. As I said, I took lots of coaching training and knew what I was doing, was good at it. Clients liked me. Everything was great about my business, but I was miserable. So I was thinking, okay, this doesn't quite correspond, that I'm miserable, and yet I'm supposed to be helping people. I did a lot of work with people in business, leaders, managers, entrepreneurs, and that I was telling them that I can help them have the life and the business that they want when I wasn't experiencing that. So it felt out of integrity to have my own business and saying, I can help you with all of this. So I shut my business down. I walked away from my business in 2007. And set off on this journey that I didn't really know what I was on or where I was going, or I had really no direction. Luckily, over the years, business came to me. I got work in Singapore. Other things came along over the years, but it took 11 years. It wasn't until 2017, 2018, that the great wisdom traditions came to me. A book, somebody recommended a book, and I looked at the book. It's a small book. Before too long, immediate relief. I'm going, this is what's been missing all these years. So what I learned from the great wisdom traditions is that we already are everything that we're seeking. We already are everything that we're seeking. And the coaching I had been working with, and I've since been certified in it by another coaching school, but all the coaching models that I was using were about getting somewhere. Engage in these practices, change conversations, change activities, keep becoming a better person, so to speak, keep becoming more evolved, all that. And someday you'll experience this. Although the idea was that as you do the practices and exercises along the way, you'd start experiencing what the experiences were that you were looking for, like peace and love and deep contentment and deep meaning. And so the idea was that along the way, you'd be experiencing that, and it'd be sustainable over time by doing these various practices and exercises. Although so far that had not worked in the long term for me. So then when I started studying the wisdom traditions, realized, oh, I already am all of this. I don't have to keep seeking and trying to get somewhere. All I have to do, then back to the self-inquiry part of your question, is turn around and look within and realize it's already right here. Now, so that's the that was the understanding that I realized in reading these works. And then it does take doing the self-inquiry. It's not like a one-off, oh, now, I mean, some people have over the years, but very rarely. It's very rare for anybody in one sitting to have some sort of experience of, oh yeah, now everything's changed. Hardly ever happens.
Right.
But it does take the asking some questions that help us see who we truly are. And you ask them over a period of time, and then you have insights that where you go, oh, aha, and then everything changes. It's an insight like if somebody believed in Santa Claus. Hopefully, no, there aren't any real young listeners on this, but if they are,
Everybody cover your ears.
Santa Claus. If you believed in Santa Claus, then one day there was a Santa Claus. All of a sudden, one day you knew there wasn't. Everything changed. It's that kind of insight where we have these insights in this self-inquiry, and everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
So all at once, like, oh, I never saw that before. And then it starts being integrated into our experience, and that's what then starts changing how we see ourselves, how we see the world, and we can feel now, usually, everything that we're trying to accomplish or become in the world, that we don't have to, we can be there now. So for example, somebody wants to make a lot of money. If we ask them enough questions, why do you want to make a lot of money? Well, because I want to be successful. Okay, but why do you want to be successful? And you ask 2 or 3 questions, and pretty quickly it gets to, because I want to experience peace or security, which is another form of peace, or I want to be happy, or I want to, know I'm fulfilled in life.
Right.
And so with this wisdom teachings and doing the self-inquiry, then we start experiencing that peace and happiness, fulfillment now. And then we actually, paradoxically, it's easier then to be more successful in business, or have the relationships that we want, or lead an organization in the way that we want, because we already feel that, and now it's being shared with other people as we live our daily experiences.
Yeah, and that's definitely it's the whole chasing something and never finding it. It's getting lost in the labyrinth of life, looking for something that is really not attainable. What was that? It was a Bob Marley quote. It was like, money is numbers, and numbers never end. So your search for money will never end, because you'll never have. There'll be never enough. There's never a number that's high enough. I mean, even talk to people that do have quite a substantial amount of money, and they're looking at their peers at that level and thinking, I need to have more. I need to get to the higher rung. I don't know at what point. It's probably a personal thing for each person at what point they can just stop that search, for money or for whatever. It's kind of like losing your keys, and you look and you look and you look. My thought is, as soon as I know I've lost something, I need to stop hunting for it actively, trying to find it, because it's likely I just need to give it a minute, and I'll either remember exactly where I put it, or I'll stumble upon it, depending on the moment. Like the lost keys. As soon as I stop looking, there they are.
Right.
Oh, they're in this pocket.
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
That's
and now as far as clients, you work with clients online. Do you work with clients in person as well?
I do. I work, online, in person. I have a public group. And then I also work within organizations. I do workshops in organizations, and I also work with leaders in business, lawyers, entrepreneurs. And so some of them want one-on-one coaching, and some of them want to be in a group, either in their organization or this public group I have.
Okay, like management will bring you in to work with the employees, that sort of thing.
Right, and management.
And management. At every level.
Right. That's the place to start, really. Like I said a few minutes ago, be the change you want to see. So a lot of times in organizations, people want outside coaches or trainers to come in and, get my team ready to go. And yet it's really, we want to start with the executive or manager, because the team is going to be a reflection of that person. So if that person also isn't doing whatever the work is to be the person that they think they want to see in the team,
Yeah.
then it's, I mean, I've done that because that's what organizations want, and at least it's better than nothing. But ideally, the management wants to do the work first, or at least at the same time. Otherwise, again, it's not going to be sustainable.
Right. Now, where are you based
I'm in
now?
Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
just recently moved back from. I was in Texas till the first of the year.
Oh, okay. You have a favorite place that you've been? Favorite city?
Well, Fayetteville's really nice. This is where I went to school, but I lived in both New York City, Manhattan,
Hmm.
and Healdsburg, California,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
in Sonoma County, wine country,
I know where that's
California.
at.
So
Yeah.
and it's small towns. So you might think those
Yeah.
are worlds apart. Oh my gosh, how did you really like New York City? Which I
Right.
loved living in New York City,
Yeah.
and you loved living in Healdsburg. How do those go together? Well, in Healdsburg, it was small enough to where you knew people. You could walk to the square, walk
Right.
to a store. And in New York, you walk to the store up the
Yep.
street. You take public transportation, and so and every area of New York City is kind of a neighborhood, a
Right.
smaller
Small
city,
town.
if you will.
Yeah. Borough or
So
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, so I loved both.
Okay. New
Those,
York and Healdsburg. Yeah.
right.
For a long time, I did a lot of traveling, and I never would say that I had a favorite, but I would say, a favorite small town and then a favorite big town because it's very different.
Yeah.
There's a different feel to cities, but there's something really nice about small towns too that you can't discount it. But I've been to a lot of cities, and I had some favorite cities that I really like to go to, but then small towns too. You can't discount that whole complete shift from, a city is a city. So that's a whole different type of life.
Yeah,
Healdsburg. Okay, great area. Yeah,
it
a lot of
is.
great wine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have clients. Do you have any kind of like testimonials with clients that, like any kind of breakthroughs that you could share that you've heard from clients through your method?
Yeah, sure. Well, often
Without
what
giving
people,
names or anything like that,
right,
of course.
often what people find is that very similar to me, that they feel almost immediate relief. In organizations, people are so stressed to produce, try to get somewhere, to be a better leader, to be a better team player. And there's so much emphasis on trying to get somewhere and be a better person.
Right.
And it's most developmental coaching in the workplace. Let's get ourselves to some place.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of stress and anxiety around that. Plus, there's some element of we need to change, something needs to be different, and all that adds to that stress as well. And so people, once they start engaging with this insight that, I can start by knowing who I truly am, then people start relaxing.
Right.
Just relaxing, and the leader starts relaxing. Leaders can be a little concerned at the beginning. Well, if I relax, what's going to happen to the team? Except that what happens is, are they going to still produce? Because there's a lot of ideas with some leaders anyway that you've got to, kind of be on top of things like that kind of energy of.
Right.
But when people realize this, then and they start relaxing, then the team relaxes too. And then what happens? Then performance goes up.
Right. Right.
Because now I'm not defending myself. I'm not protecting myself. My focus isn't on trying to get better. My focus is on, I already am everything I need. Now let's release that and let's perform. Now I really want to perform in a whole different way because I experienced the leader better. So that's the sort of feedback in that sort of situation where the leader relaxes and does really what most leaders want to do anyway. They want to serve the team, but instead of learning skills, and although that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but instead of starting with that, learning skills to be a better listener, learning skills to get performance going, then it's the way of being that occurs that automatically they're going to listen better. They don't have to learn a skill to do that or remember to do it. They're really present with the person. So that's one element of feedback, is that the leaders are more enjoying leadership, and then the team does too, and then the performance goes up.
Right.
Other people have had amazing insights into like there's a problem to be solved, if you will, although technically it's not a problem. So we realize it's not a problem. It's a situation, but they feel kind of stuck in the situation. And when they start engaging again with these questions and being still and just open and present, then insights and ideas come to them that come out of nowhere that they could not have thought of, or think they could not have thought of. They might have, but it's such a different experience that they're in at that point that then a different relationship with reality and themselves and their team, that all of a sudden ideas come that they are brilliant, creative, and innovative that they didn't have before. So that, and other people. So I have a client that's a writer, and just things just flow through. Just flow through. Whereas before, this person wouldn't even give themselves permission to write because it wasn't important, or it wasn't what they were supposed to be doing with their life. And once they gave themselves permission, flow. This book's been with this person for over 20 years, and
so kind of like clearing a writer's block or a creative block.
Yeah, just gave the person permission to write the book, and then the book that wanted to be written started coming through.
Right. And what would you say the method that you're doing is kind of like a suggestive meditation or guided meditation of sorts, kind of getting somebody down brainwave speed, down closer to theta or something like that, or alpha, where they can kind of free their mind of the clutter and be open to new resources?
No, it's really the approach. So one of the things that I found, again, when I first discovered the great wisdom traditions, and frankly, we all are really aware of them, because all great religions and spiritual traditions are based on the same thing.
Right.
And the idea is, or the basis of it is, that we're all one shared being, the nature of which is love, peace, happiness, fulfillment, meaning, purpose. And so when we start with that premise, then, and do the inquiry, because that's a nice idea. A lot of people, especially when during COVID, were saying, yeah, we're all one. Look, we're really connected. But that's a concept. So how do we embody that knowing, which, the wisdom traditions have been telling us for 3,000 years. Science has been telling us for the last 100 years. We're intimately entangled. Intimately entangled. So sometimes people need a little more science at the beginning. So I give them a little more science, or guide them to some articles to read about science. But then we start discovering this experience of the one being that we are. So, for example, I can give several examples. If you want to go this direction, you can let me know. Sure. But one example is that that right now we're hearing each other, and our listeners are hearing us. And so if they want to explore this, an experience of being one with everything, not being separate, then they can notice, oh, where do I hear this conversation? And our first reaction might be, I hear it in my brain, or I hear it coming out of the computer, because we've been conditioned to believe we hear things over there. So when we were a child, look at the bird up there in the tree singing. And so we just start thinking that the bird is up there in the tree singing, and that's where the sound's coming from. But if we look in our experience, that's not where we hear the sound. We hear the sound in our experience. Now, that can be pretty challenging at the beginning, but we can let it sink in and let us realize, wow, yeah, in my experience, the sound is here where I am, and then that starts leading to the knowing I'm not separate from that sound. If I think the sound's coming from over there, then I think I'm receiving some sound and I'm separate from it.
Mm-hmm.
But when we realize, oh, in my experience, the sound is here, then we can do the same thing with seeing. Oh, I'm seeing this on the computer or my phone. Okay, but where am I seeing this in my experience? I see it here. Then another question is, can any of us separate our experience from um, from anything else? So like if I see another person, I'm with another person. Is there any way to separate my experience from this person? No. If I'm with this person, if I'm seeing them, hearing them, with them, that's in my experience. That is my experience. I'm not separate from them. We cannot separate anybody or anything from our experience. So those are the sorts of questions that we start engaging in, and we just have to stick with them. So it's not like, oh yeah, I see that. Then we stick with it for a while because we've been conditioned since we were first born. So when we're first born, we have a sense that we're one with everything. There's no separation. It's just everything is there.
Right.
But then we get conditioned to believe we're separate, because pretty soon our parents or other people around us are saying, look at Peggy. Isn't she cute? Oh, she's such a good baby. Oh, and Peggy, look at the tree. Look at the bird. This is mommy. This is daddy. And so at some point within the first 18 months, something kind of clicks that I'll be this separate object over here. I must be separate from all of this because of the way we talk. We get conditioned into that. And then everything starts flowing out from there, that we're separate from each other. But that's a belief. That we're separate, it's just a thought. It's not reality. So these are the inquiries that we do, that we start dissolving these illusions by seeing through them with these insights.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think a lot, when you go back into the old, like really old shamanic traditional methods, not everybody is called to do that kind of work. And those that aren't typically live in that veiled life where they're at the whims of the world in that separation. And those that are called to join with all things in some form, whatever way they can, whatever methodology or ritual gets them to be more connected to the astral or the ether or the fourth dimension, to be able to access those places to help the group or the community, the tribe or whatever. It's not for everybody, but it's those that are special or touched or have been granted permission or however it comes about. But I find that when you're growing up, there is these veils and I wonder if somebody was raised in a different way, how different on a dramatic scale the community with people that were raised with kids in a more connected way versus a separate way. Because the separation, I think, is like a survival method that people are learned over time to say, well, somebody's over there, and we evaluate that before we approach it so that we don't get into trouble or something like that.
Exactly.
It seems like it's natural, or at the very least conditioned very early by the elders, those that are teaching us. But in a lot of ways, as an animal first, it's like a safety net to have that separation from the wild tiger, to know, like, okay, wild tiger wants to eat me. A battle may ensue, and I need to be on top of the situation to the utmost. So I feel like, and again, some shamans are called very early in life, or at the beginning, some warriors of that sort. But I feel like the veil of separation initially is to learn that way, and then learning to be connected. It gives you the best of both worlds. There's a challenge to learning to get out of the veils or to lift the veils. And it can be very necessary, depending on how life is, to approach life in a way that's you're able to view the world in that separation, but also click it over to and to view it from a connected stance. Is that something that you work to coach in, like a switch, an ability to just kind of turn on and turn off?
It winds up happening naturally. In other words, we're here to live this human experience, obviously, because that's
Right.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we still are engaged with the world. We still are going to drive a car. We're going to talk to each other. But the experience and the relationship with the world shifts so that we experience the shared being
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
we are. So let's say, um, so let's say I'm I'm a leader in an organization and I'm working with somebody and I don't know what we're talking about today. I think we're separate. So then if I'm the leader and somebody's not performing, then I'll think that I'm a leader, they're not performing. I've
Right.
got to help them or get a coach for them or do something because they've got to start performing. And so and it feels like separate. It feels like I've got to fix them. There's
Yeah.
something
Their
wrong over
problem,
there.
not
They
my
got a
problem.
problem. So
Right.
with this understanding, then that circumstance may still be there. But now I'm not bringing in that there's anything to change, that there's anything wrong, that there's anything to fix. But I'm seeing this person as another aspect of me.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, a guru who brought in it's called the direct path, who brought this direct path back into more current times, Ramana Maharshi. And he's been dead for some period of time, but over the last couple of hundred years brought this knowing back in
Mm-hmm.
to available to more people. And one time, some of the he would call them friends probably around him said, "Well, how do we treat others?" And he said, "Well, there are no others."
Mm-hmm.
And as one of my clients, an attorney, once said, as we were doing this work, he said, "Oh, I'm always talking to myself."
Right.
So that's what happens is that then the person realized, "Oh, I'm talking to myself." And so as we work together, then on their own, the leader, starts seeing. In fact, one of them did say to me things like, "Oh, I was going to have this sort of conversation with them, but now I really see them in a whole new way. This conversation is going to go entirely differently. I'm going to be there with this open heart and this understanding. They're another aspect of me, so I'm going to talk to them the way I'd want to be talked to and supported." And it just starts shifting energetically, if you will, and the whole way of being. And then what happens in the interaction changes dramatically. And it can happen pretty quickly. Like I've had one conversation with somebody and just exactly what I said occurred, where they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm be entirely different with this person than I was planning to be an hour ago,"
Right.
along these lines.
It's a realignment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they get realigned to address themselves in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that they see is not working correctly. Maybe they approach it like in their own shoes or something like that.
Something like that. Mm-hmm.
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 That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so is it typical that you're working in corporate or business as far as groups go?
Um, I do. I mean, they've always said you're supposed to find a niche. My
Yeah.
niche is no niche. So,
Right.
because I like the variety. And so
Yeah.
I've been abysmal at this niche thing. Yes, but I do work with leaders and managers and organizations and teams and organizations, as well as lawyers. But I also work with entrepreneurs. I work with retired people that are trying to find more. They've been very successful. The people that I work with have been extremely successful. They're usually often over in their mid to late 50s or beyond because they've raised their children and they've been real successful. But they're going, "Is this all there is?"
Right.
So I'll get that like with attorneys or leaders in organizations, that sort of thing. And then some people get all the way to retirement and then are like, okay, I've got to know, why am I here and what am I going to do with the rest of my life? So it does run the gamut, but it's
Yeah.
typically somebody that's somewhat successful. Usually if they're still starting out fairly new, then they're in that struggle and the fear of all of that. And it's a little hard for people to step back and go, I want to know who I truly am. Some of them
Right.
do, but it usually is somebody that's been around a little bit and feels, somewhat settled in their life,
Yeah.
at least financially. But so I work with all kinds of people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And as far as outcomes, you're getting good outcomes
Right.
with those that you're working with. Um, what what method do you use as far as do you Zoom? You do like video, or you fly to these locations as well to do the work?
Yeah, it just depends. So
Mhm.
usually if it's an individual, it's on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I do have the public group that's on Zoom, although we do occasionally meet in person for a weekend. And
Yeah.
then if it's an organization, yeah. Well, both. I mean, usually it's mixed. Usually I'll go there for a group event, a group workshop, and then follow up on Zoom as a group or
Yeah.
with the executive one on one.
Okay. Now, do you are you training other people to do what you do? Training your
Not
method?
Not right now. No, I mean
No.
they're uh, because it's the reason is it's the first step is somebody has to really want to know who they are,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's what happens first, and then then and then they'll know if they want to bring that into their coaching or if it'll be integrated naturally
Yeah.
so they don't
Okay.
really have to be trained in anything because each person is going to engage with this differently and express it differently and yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And as far as for a typical interaction with a client, they contact you, you work with them directly or through Zoom, and then work to help them facilitate that self-reflection.
Yes.
It's like they already have to have that desire, and I find that often too. If you don't have the desire to know more, it's really hard to approach systems that
Yeah.
are there to teach you something about yourself or give you the
Yeah.
mirror.
Hmm.
If you don't want to
Hmm.
look in it, then what's the point of doing the system? But so they basically have to have that first initial desire to want to know more,
Hmm.
and then from
Yeah,
there,
yeah, or at least want to be happy. That sense of I've done other things,
okay,
and but I'm not ready to give up yet. And so, but not necessarily. I mean, one lawyer I worked with hadn't really done. He'd done a little bit of personal development work, but not much. Um, but uh, but but he was asking these questions. Just
yeah,
saying I'm tired of developing. I just want to be who I am. You
right,
know and so that opened a big possibility there. And um, let's see. Oh, so yes. So the way that I work is I have 5 illusions and 5 insights that we start with, and we
okay,
do these questions with each of those, and
okay,
then so it's a self reflection using these questions
mm-hmm.
over days and weeks until it starts sinking in. So it's not a concept like this concept of we're all one. Okay, that's nice. I mean, we all love John Lennon's lyrics. So
Right,
intuitively, we know this. One day we'll live as one. And so that's part of my commitment that
yeah,
one day, which can be sooner, doesn't have to be way off in the future, we'll live as this one being that we really, we're moved with John Lennon's lyrics because we know it's possible. We know there's some other possibility.
yeah.
So
We feel the truth
we
in
do
that,
feel the
yeah,
truth. We know it.
right. It makes both sense. If we think of, if you take like our technology of microscopes and you zoom in, we see that everything's made up of these atoms, everything that's radiating. That means that, it's just the difference in how they bind and how they bond. That's the only difference, but they're all made up of the same fabric, as it were, physical
And
space.
speaking of atoms,
Mm,
every human being on the planet has atoms from every other human being that's ever been
right.
alive.
It's ever
Alive,
been there.
alive,
Right.
alive. And
We're
like you and
breathing the
I
same
right
air.
now have atoms in each other that have been in each other. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy to think about. Once you start getting into the more infinite reaches of
Yeah.
that everything or that all, it starts to
Yeah.
get really beyond the scope of the mind.
Yes.
But we feel that, and I think it's a sense
Yeah.
or a connection to a sense
Mm-hmm.
that most things are agreeing that all things are one. That there is
Mm-hmm.
a great unity, kind of whether we like it or not, or whether we believe in it or not. It's only
Mm-hmm.
things seem to prove it versus disprove it, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
As they learn more, they're like, there's an entanglement issue you're talking about, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's that, influence from far away or influence close
Mm-hmm.
too far away. That
Mm-hmm.
things that have a shared space without having a
Mm-hmm.
shared space.
Mm-hmm.
It just again it warps the mind because the mind only thinks
Mm-hmm.
finite, in a finite way.
But I appreciate that you said that about influence, because that's another way that people can notice that we're all connected, we're all one. Most people aren't paying much attention to it.
Right.
But if we think about it, if somebody walks into the room and they're angry, we're immediately kind of on edge, on guard,
Yeah.
like the lion or tiger you were talking about. We feel
Right.
that.
Right.
And or somebody's really happy walks into the room, oh, we feel that. So we can really start helping ourselves grok this, that word grok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grok. Yeah.
Really get in our body if
Yeah.
we start paying attention. But most of us aren't paying much attention. We're just,
Right.
you
That's
know
yeah.
and so, but if we pay attention, we can realize, oh yeah, I'm always influencing other people, they're influencing me. Yes, we're intimately, back to the word you and I both used and scientists use, we're intimately entangled.
Yeah.
Oh, there's no separation.
Right. It's like a vibrational soup. I've heard somebody use that term, like a soup, and it's like yeah, it's kind of like you splash in one direction. Everybody is going to feel it, even if it's just one direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's and especially like you said, walking into a room. I found that there's I did a lot of work with Mayan astrology,
Uh-huh.
and it attached itself a lot, or vice versa, into the shamanic understandings of consciousness, of the
Yeah.
unknown and the known and the unknown, and parallels to that in Western astrology. There's also a lot about aspects between two planets or two bodies of,
Mm,
of influence. And it's
mm,
all very, to me, it's all very common sense understandings of how nature works and how things
mm,
work. If something's next to you or conjunct to your position, it's one with you. It's an empowerment. It empowers you.
mm,
Somebody's with you and aligned in one
mm,
frame of reference. If somebody is, I think in one, it's to the left of you, and you're meeting in the middle, you don't actually see it coming. So it's like a hidden
mm,
aspect, a hidden
mm,
thing. So somebody's intent, what their feelings are, you're not going to vibe with everybody. In other words, sometimes it's going to be
mhm,
like getting T-boned.
mm. Oh yeah.
That
Mhm.
concept of the 90
Mhm.
degree.
Mhm.
And then sometimes they're on the opposite side. I think that's the most valuable because it's like the mirror of
Mm,
yourself. But
mhm.
in a another sense, it's also like oncoming traffic. You know,
Right.
like playing chicken with somebody, and
Yeah.
their energy may not align really well at all. But you can learn so much from their place and what they have to say because it's like that mirror of yourself.
Yeah.
And I find that while we're in this soup, sometimes might not even know where the vibes are coming from that we're
Mhm.
feeling. They can be hidden.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
like you said, it really takes the pause and that drop
Mhm.
down and
Mhm.
just become aware of your space
Mhm.
to allow the perception, which is going to know a lot more about getting outside of that bowl
Mhm.
and seeing
Mhm.
things from above, as it were,
Mhm.
to kind of know, like, okay, this is, I think you were saying the one lawyer was doing work to try and develop himself and trying to progress, but was getting caught into the process. and
Mm-hmm.
still had questions. The questions kept
Right.
coming.
Mm-hmm.
So you're showing light onto, okay, you have a desire for change. It sounds like that's like
Mm-hmm.
the main modus to get out of, even the wrap of personal development, to get out of that and to get more into themselves.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
you basically are bringing them back to self, like bringing
Exactly.
them
Oh,
back to
beautifully
themselves.
said. Yeah.
Right. That's great. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Can be not easy because of all the
No.
distractions, this day
Yes.
and age.
And we're so
So much going on.
conditioned by society. I mean, watch any commercial.
Yeah.
Get the new car and you'll be happy, and you'll get the girl and
Yeah.
you'll be hot. And I mean, it's just constant. Even if
It's
we know it
constant.
intellectually that that's what's going on, it
Right.
just is in our whole being, like you said. So it's so hard to wait. Do I want to stop getting pulled into that
Right.
and turn back around? It is very challenging.
Yeah. Yeah. When I've tried to shed away as much for commercials. I've been in sales for
Yeah.
most of my life, and when I
Oh,
hear
yeah.
them, it's all I hear is, buy this, buy
Right.
this, name recognition over and over again.
Over and over. Yeah.
Geico is one of the best twists to that,
Uh,
but it's still
yeah.
basically saying get Geico insurance
Yeah.
over. It's like a
Over and over.
hypnosis,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what it is. It's just trying to entrain you into think
Mm-hmm.
about us later.
Right.
Yeah, and so the distractions are definitely. And so your course or your work with somebody, it varies obviously in time.
Yeah.
What would be the shortest amount of time, and what would be like the longest amount of time that you have worked with somebody or would be willing to do that?
4 to 6 months would be
Okay.
the shortest. And I have some people that I've worked with for a couple of years.
Okay. Yeah.
So, um, just, it's a deepening that occurs,
Yeah.
you know, in 4 to 6 months, you've got what you need, the understandings, you've started working with the insights, you've seen a lot, it's starting to embody. And then, so some people want to just do it on their own, or frankly, some people go, that was nice. And I'm going back to I don't want to keep up this self inquiry. I don't want to keep that up. And that's fine
Right.
because they've got everything they really, quote, need if they want to return to it. But most people stick with it. And because it's, like I said, pretty immediately that we feel the relief. And so it's like, wow, why would I go back to this constant stress and anxiety and all like that?
Right.
I'm done with that. So most people are done. But
Yeah.
some people, people do what they do, of course, and that's fine. But 4 to 6 months, and then some people want to stay longer because they do. It just keeps deepening and deepening, and they like particularly group work. They love the group work because of the deepening, and I do some work with groups where we start also working as one mind,
Mm-hmm.
where somebody can bring in something that's going on in their life, and they've done what we talked about a while ago, where they slowed down, they asked, they sat,
Right.
but they still are like, something's kind of stuck here. I'd like to bring it to the group, and so we bring a group mind approach to what arises within any of us with regard to this situation that this person's kind of stuck in.
Mm.
And so we've had some incredible uh, gifts of insight that the other person's received. Somebody will see this or think of this, and then the person, oh my gosh, I never thought of that, and that's exactly what will help me in this situation.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why some people like staying in the group, because we do that as we go along as well.
Wow. Yeah. Now, are you finding really good results, or maybe even better, faster results as far as people getting to where they need to be in the group versus on an individual?
It really just depends. The one thing about the group is that questions that we might not think of or insights we might not realize we had, it gets really reinforced quite quickly, or other things there's, oh, I'm glad they talked about that because I hadn't really thought about that. And so it creates that reinforcement of because this turns the world upside down. There's like,
Right.
am I just crazy here and thinking this could be true? Or so it helps also reinforce that doubt that we get when very few people in the population are taking this on, even though, again, science and wisdom traditions have been telling us this for thousands of years. And so it helps to validate the experience, validate what they're doing, validate that this is who they are. So, but it does depend on the person. Like the attorney I've referenced a time or two made quite quick progress by himself, but he also had a wife that was engaged in this conversation. So he wasn't just alone. He had a wife that was engaged in it. And so
doing work as well, basically. Yeah. As a couple. Yeah. Do you
Right.
do couples like coaching? Is that
No.
no? Okay.
I mean, I
Not as
have. I've
common.
worked with people that owned a business. The husband and wife owned the business, and I've
Yeah.
worked with them that way. And then, of course, the relationship comes into play, but
Right.
I don't market
Not
or never
specifically.
really worked with. Yeah.
Yeah. And as far as for contact for the listeners and watchers, I'll have it tagged in the description of the show as well. But where can people find you? What avenues?
Yeah, so happy anybody email me if you want to have a further conversation about any of this at Peggy. Well, you said you'd put it in there, but it's Peggy at peggy-o'neil.com, Oneal.
Okay.
And then they can go to my website, peggy-o'neil.com, and sign up for a newsletter, which has articles weekly on what we're talking about here. So it's relevant, it's valuable information, help
Yeah.
people pursue what we're talking about here through these articles. And then also upcoming events, because I do have free events
Okay.
once a month, and so they'll have information about when those are. And so those are the two best ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And newsletters are great because it kind of keeps things fresh. And does it work with current trends and news and that sort of thing? Or
Yeah, so I've brought in, what a lot of businesses have experienced with COVID, supply chain issues and quiet quitting and all like that. So I do address those sorts of issues, as well as the wars in the world and how to relate to all of that, as well as with the quiet quitting. So business people that have employees that are doing that, they have one issue, but then those people are seeking meaning and purpose, and so there are articles that come at it both ways, so that the people that are seeking the purpose and meaning start information is relevant to that as well. So it's kind of both sides sometimes. Yeah.
Depending on where they're at.
Right.
And everybody can learn from each side of it.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Definitely see where the other is coming from. Oh, that's great. Okay. And then do you use social media and all of that as well?
Yeah, I'm on
Facebook?
LinkedIn. I have a Facebook group, Answering the Call. If somebody wants to join that, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, it was really great talking to you today.
It's great being with you too, Nick.
A lot of great information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
we'll talk again soon.
Well, that'd be wonderful. Great.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you. You too.